woman. I think she's a powerful force of good and positive energy.
But she ain't no Elon.
But she also brought us Dr. Oz and The Secret. We have to remember what this lady has done.
She has to be held accountable.
I forgive her, but I mean, cut the The Secret is a particularly egregious offense.
What, you just...
Oh, you don't believe?
You don't believe?
Oh, believe? Believe?
I want to be rich. I am rich.
I imagine myself flying. I can fly. I will beat my wings until I take off.
You hear the name Oprah and instantly think wisdom, warmth, and maybe a free car or two. But what happens when that carefully polished image gets torn apart by two of the bluntest voices in media? Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly didn't just raise eyebrows, they set fire to the very foundation of Oprah's empire. No polite critiques, no sugarcoating, just raw, ruthless honesty slicing through decades of spiritual buzzwords and feel-good, branding like a machete through a vision board.
Used to love Oprah, like most of us who grew up when we did. And only now did I realize I've been getting spoon-fed propaganda from this woman for years. I always took her little setup packages as gospel. You know, before I was a reporter, I never even thought to question whether Oprah might be intentionally misleading me. Then last night, the dawn came, and I was like, oh my God, she is not a reporter, she's a propaganda.
What they exposed wasn't just one woman's contradictions, it was an entire belief system dressed up in cashmere, lit by scented candles, and protected by a fortress of curated vulnerability. The question isn't whether Oprah's empire is flawed. The real shock is how long we all believed it was flawless. Buckle up, because once this facade starts cracking, the whole illusion collapses.
Is calling out Oprah and Michelle Obama for hypocritical speeches at the DNC. Watch.
She's up there talking about income inequality. Like, hey, lady.
Yeah, I know.
You're rich as Like, how is that equal? And also, when Michelle Obama was saying, you know, I think she was saying her mother or grandmother was always suspicious of people who took more than they needed.
Yes.
Like, you are worth so much money.
Take more than they need. The Obamas have 4 mansions.
I mean, it's a bunch of rich people talking about rich.
Long before she was sipping chai in Montecito and shaping national conversations, Oprah Winfrey was just another rising media voice. But what she built over the decades wasn't a show, was a full-blown belief system. Her rise wasn't just meteoric hit, was mythological. And, at the center of it all, a message wrapped in soft tones and velvet couches. Trust your gut. Love yourself, and by the book. The couch became her altar, the applause him, and millions of viewers tuned in not just for entertainment, but for direction. It didn't matter if the advice came from a spiritual guru, a celebrity meltdown, or a feel-good fadif. It passed through Oprah's filter. It became gospel.
It was one of the more I want to say disturbing, but it was confusing when that was taking hold with people. When I had friends that were telling me that The Secret is real and that they imagined they were going to fulfill these childhood dreams that they had had about whatever, being a fucking astronaut, whatever it would be. There's a couple people that I knew that were trying to tell me that The Secret was going to be the thing and that they had a vision board and they had photographs. They put pictures up of the things that they wanted, like them in front of large crowds and shit. And I'm like, oh boy.
Them in front of large crowds.
This is so not how it worked.
But here's where things turn. Behind the healing mantras and journal prompts was a marketing machine running at full tilt. It wasn't just vulnerability she was offering, it was commodified hope. You weren't healing, you were consuming. And the brilliance, you felt like you were growing while spending money doing it, whether it was a book, a supplement, or a $40 candle charged with intention. It all came back to one brand, Oprah. Approval wasn't a review, was an ointment. And when something got the Oprah seal, no one asked questions. It didn't need science. It didn't need logic. It just needed vibes.
See the Oprah interview?
No.
She's off the rails.
Yeah,
Off the rails.
I heard about it.
Into fucking wine mom country again.
Wow.
I'm a gun owner. Tim Walz is a gun.
I did not know that.
If somebody breaks in my house, they're getting shot.
Yes, I hear that.
Tim Dillon is the best. Tim Dillon's like, she's saying gypsy curses. What is she saying?
When was the last time Oprah actually spent time hanging out with a working class person in America? She's on her Montecito estate with one of the most beautiful mansions known to man. And that is why she did not follow up with Kamala Harris in response to that stupid gun question with, well, you're on camera saying that you favor mandatory gun buybacks. So how would that work? The Oprah enthusiasm worked when it was genuine.
That's the exact part Rogan and Kelly went for. Not the kindness, not the legacy, but the way she wrapped commercialism in compassion and sold it back to America as a moral compass. For years, Oprah's empire ran on intuition and emotional resonance, and questioning it felt like sacrilege. But what happens when that emotional GPS leads people off a cliff? Rogan and Kelly didn't just ask, they answered, and in the process, they didn't just challenge the cult of Oprah, they tore it apart. And if you thought the empire stopped at soft-lit sermons and vision boards, wait until you see the scientists she turned into celebrities. Before they were household names, they were Oprah's protégés, polished, endorsed, and handed a megaphone by the Queen of Daytime, Dr. Oz. Wasn't just a guest, he was a regular fixture, transformed from respected surgeon to pop culture health oracle. But behind the scrubs and soothing voice, his advice started spiraling miracle supplements, detox myths, and diet gimmicks dressed up as science. Viewers trusted him because Oprah did. That trust wasn't earned, was borrowed. And then came Dr. Phil, her other brainchild marketed as the no-nonsense tough talker America needed. He strutted onto stages, diagnosing strangers like a game show host with a psychology degree. The man hadn't been licensed to practice in decades yet. Millions followed his every word like gospel.
Yeah, so let's think of when The Secret came out. I want to say that was like 2006-ish.
2004.
2006.
Nice.
Okay. So 12 years ago, she was 50 years old. How the fuck do you not know when you're 50 years old and worth $1 billion that that's not how it works?
That it's hocus pocus.
Yeah, it's not hocus pocus.
Yeah.
And to sell that to people is crazy. And that's a book that sold, I think I was reading, it sold somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 million copies.
Wow.
Is that what it says, yeah?
Jeez.
That's
What Oprah gave them wasn't just famit, was credibility, untouchable and unearned. Joe Rogan didn't mince words. He compared the whole thing to handing grenades to influencers. Megyn Kelly cut even deeper, pointing out that Oprah had unleashed to media giants whose empires were built not on healing, but on spectacle. And when the backlash came, Oprah didn't step in. She didn't clarify, apologize, or course correct. She vanished from the narrative, leaving behind two talking heads spinning damage into daytime ratings. This wasn't just bad judgment, it was a pattern. And the consequences didn't end on camera, but that was only the beginning, because Oprah wasn't done shaping what the public believed. What came next blurred the line between inspiration and full-blown fantasy.
Trying to shove messaging down my throat of whatever she believes, not what's real. So, you remember she did that, like, kind of factual interview after the, quote, documentary of Michael Jackson?
Yes.
That was so dishonest.
Yes.
She did not raise any of those accusers' serious compromising facts when she had them right there. Maybe they're telling the truth, maybe they're not. But as a journalist, you have to at least ask. You know, you've got multiple lawsuits against his estate, sir. Might that be an incentive to lie? Didn't ask.
When Oprah handed The Secret the spotlight, she wasn't just recommending a book, she was handing out a worldview. The message, think hard enough, and the universe delivers. No action, no policy, no hard truth, just vibes and vision boards. Suddenly, serious problems like illness, poverty, even trauma weren't obstacles, they were mindset malfunctions. Joe Rogan couldn't believe it. You're telling people reality is optional, he scoffed. Megyn Kelly was sharper. She called it toxic optimism in designer packaging. Millions bought in not just the book, but the belief that effort was secondary to energy, and it wasn't. Just naive, it was dangerous. Because when the universe didn't deliver, it wasn't the system's fault. It was yours. You didn't wish hard enough. You didn't attract success with the right frequency. Oprah's brand of soft-spoken empowerment had crossed a line from inspiration to indoctrination. And she didn't just endorse it, she owned it. Her stamp made it gospel. For some, it was harmless. For others, it was a detour from real solutions. with a smile and a bestseller badge. But if the secret pushed belief over facts,
you've got these accusations against him. You had a book that you were supposed to produce about Michael Jackson in the context of litigation where you were required to turn this stuff over, and you lied saying that you didn't have it. And you only got found out because Random House and these other publishers admitted you shopped it to them and turned over the metadata to Michael Jackson's estate. This guy, my point is simply, this one accuser was very compromised, and she had him right after the documentary. It aired on HBO right after. Didn't ask a question. Then she gets Megyn Markle. That was another propaganda fest.
Oprah's next move was even bolder, stepping into the political ring with the same emotional toolkit. Just when you thought Oprah had reached her final form, wellness mogul, spiritual guru, book club monarch, she switched lanes again. This time into politics. Not as a casual commentator, but as a full-blown kingmaker. Her endorsement became the golden ticket. Candidates weren't just vetted, they were vibe-checked. If they aligned with Oprah's spiritual truth, the anointing, followed. Joe Rogan called it what it was, political cosplay wrapped in incense. He couldn't believe a billionaire in a private vineyard was pitching herself as the voice of the people. Megyn Kelly went further. She picked senators the way she picks skincare, she said, based on feelings, not facts. And yet, the public followed as. If voting could be guided by the same instinct used to choose a gratitude journal, this wasn't about policy, it was about narrative. Oprah framed her endorsements as moral awakenings, not strategic decisions. No platform breakdowns, no economic analysis. Just emotional resonance. And if you disagreed, you just weren't aligned. But while her brand was all about authenticity, her moves were calculated. Private jets, $12,000 coats, candlelit interviews about inequality. The optics didn't match the message. Rogan and Kelly didn't just criticize the politics, they exposed the disconnect, preaching empathy from marble countertops. And just when critics thought the contradictions had peaked, Oprah made her boldest move yet, becoming the ultimate symbol of wellness, while quietly pivoting into something much more profitable.
Is coming from the other way. She had the accusers there, and the accusers may or may not have had this experience with Michael Jackson.
Oh, you're talking about the HBO doc?
Yes.
Yes.
But she failed to bring up prior inconsistencies in their stories that really did compromise their stories. I don't know what happened.
I understand what you're saying.
So
okay,
I'm just saying, as a journalist, which she purports to be,
right,
it was a complete fail.
Right.
And then she committed the same failure with Megyn Markle,
yes,
where she didn't press any of her claims of racism in the royal family. Mm-hmm. And now we have the ultimate culmination of her journalistic fail.
Oprah didn't just dabble in wellness, she built an empire on it. Essential oils, weight loss programs, soul healing retreats, all stamped with her soft voice seal of approval. But behind the lavender candles and gratitude journals was a business model as sharp as any Fortune 500. Healing became a product line. Joe Rogan wasn't fooled. It's Whole Foods spirituality with a markup, he joked. Megyn Kelly cut deeper. She sells wellness like it's hope in a bottle, and people drink it by the gallon. From detox teas to mindfulness, apps, everything had Oprah's glow and a checkout button. It wasn't about science, it was about belief. If it felt good, it was aligned. If it made money, it was transformative. And the followers, they weren't just customers, they were converts, buying into the idea that buying itself could be healing. But the real twist: Oprah profited from contradictions. Body positivity, until the next weight loss deal. Natural living, unless a pharmaceutical sponsor came calling. One minute, it was love yourself as you are. The next tit was here's how to fix it for $39.95. And as the dollars piled up, one thing became crystal clear. The message wasn't wellness, it was loyalty. And Oprah was selling both at a premium. Oprah didn't just build a brand, she built a bench.
It didn't help by sort of saying it's cheating. What do you mean it's cheating? It's a drug that helps people control their appetite. How is that cheating? So she was probably on the wrong side of things when she was saying that. And now I think she was sort of forced to admit, because as you say, it's obvious. Somebody like Oprah, who's constantly up and down with the weight and hasn't been on the skinnier side for a long time. And then suddenly, after this miracle drug comes out, like, we know but she's still a spokesperson for Weight Watchers, and I guess she's going to still tell us that the point system is really what's behind the weight loss.
Kelly didn't blink. She knows spin when she sees it, and Oprah's
Dr. Oz, Dr. Phil, even spiritual mouthpieces like Deepak Chopra. If they sat on her couch, they turned into empires overnight. One Oprah nod, and they were household names. But here's the catch. Once the cracks showed, so did the silence. Dr. Oz, once her prized health guru, eventually morphed into a headline, machine-pushing miracle cures and campaign promises. Suddenly, the wellness tips got political and Oprah. Nowhere to be found. No defense, no denouncing, just strategic distance. Like she'd never handed him the mic in the first place. Then, there's Dr. Phil, the tough love talker turned daytime drill sergeant. He didn't offer therapy so much as televised scolding sessions. Ratings gold, sure, but when the backlash came, Oprah wasn't exactly rushing to explain how he got there. Even the spiritual enlighteners like Eckhart, Tal, and Deepak Chopra, their vague wisdom quotes filled shelves and screens. But when critics started asking what any of it actually meant, Oprah stayed cloaked in incense and plausible deniability. Megyn Kelly didn't hold back. She built them, backed them, banked on them, and ghosted them when things got messy, Rogan agreed. It wasn't just bad judgment, it was calculated brand protection. Because the moment one of Oprah's gurus stopped looking like guidance and started looking like liability, they weren't part of the empire anymore. They were just another chapter she'd quietly skip in her next self-help bestseller. Some celebrities get criticized. Oprah gets canonized. Over the years, she's built something more powerful than a media empire. She built a reputation that felt sacred. Question her, and you weren't just disagreeing, you were out of alignment. Joe Rogan called it what it was, a Teflon brand. No matter what questionable advice was pushed, what flawed experts were promoted, or what contradictions came up, none of it stuck. The public didn't want to believe Oprah could be wrong. She had transcended scrutiny. Megyn Kelly didn't mince words. Oprah isn't just a personality. She's a protected category, from magazine covers to presidential endorsements. She played both sides.
She first hit the scene in like the 1980s, and she was fresh out of Chicago. She was in Chicago for the launch of her national talk show. She was something electric and interesting and authentic, you know? I miss Fat Oprah. She was just genuine. Now this thin Ozempic Oprah has lost, along with the pounds, her heart, her sense of authenticity. And what we're getting these days is this cleansed, elite, billionaire version who wants to scrub the record of facts.
Then came the pivot. Oprah's new era.
The relatable every woman and the untouchable icon, all while staying wrapped in soft lighting and even softer accountability. The real genius, she never fought criticism, she floated above it. When things went sideways, she didn't clap back. She vanished into curated silence. No apologies, no explanations. Just a quiet pivot into the next project, brand, or cause. And while most media figures eventually get held to the fire, Oprah somehow kept walking through it without a scratch or even a spark. Because when you've built an identity on empowerment, vulnerability, and soul-deep sincerity, people don't just watch you, they defend you, even when the truth starts leaking through the cracks in the glow. Oprah spent decades telling people to find their inner light. Then one day, she stopped just guiding conversations, started steering elections. Her influence leaped from the couch to the campaign trail, backing candidates with the same warmth she once used to sell book club picks. Except now, it wasn't just what to read, it was who to vote for. And the shift was quiet, almost graceful. But for critics like Rogan and Kelly, it was anything but subtle. She's not just recommending novels anymore, Rogan said. She's shaping narratives on a national scale. And when Oprah endorsed someone, it wasn't just support, it was a cultural signal. The unspoken message. If you disagree, maybe you're just not as enlightened. Kelly cut deeper. She wrapped political endorsements in spirituality, emotional language, and moral authority like voting was just another form of personal growth. But here's the twist. Her backing didn't come with policy debate or hard questions. It came with vibes. With this candidate feels right, it blurred the line between inspiration and manipulation, between connection and control. Because the Oprah effect didn't end when the cameras did it, followed viewers into the voting booth. Their wallets and their worldview and what looked like evolution to her fans. To Rogan and Kelly, it was the final transformation, media mogul to kingmaker. In Kashmir, in the end, Oprah didn't just build a brand. She built a belief system, one where intuition outweighed information, where vulnerability was monetized, and where criticism was deflected with a smile and a quote about finding your truth. Rogan and Kelly didn't break new ground, they just shattered the silence. They peeled back the velvet curtain to show us that behind the soft piano music, tearful guests, and spiritual catchphrases was a billion-dollar machine, fueled by curated sincerity and weaponized optimism. For years, Oprah sold transformation, but the fine print always led to a product, a personality, or a political message. People bought it not because they were fooled, but because the packaging was flawless. She made self-help look like salvation and influence feel like intimacy. But as Rogan and Kelly showed, when you strip away the lighting, the incense, and the endless affirmations, you're left with a hard truth. Oprah's empire didn't thrive on clarity, it thrived on comfort. And when that comfort gets challenged, what's exposed isn't just a media mogul, it's a myth so polished we stopped asking if it was ever real. Because sometimes the most dangerous illusion isn't the one that lies to your face, it's the one that teaches you to lie to yourself, softly and with gratitude.